From a mysterious black tomb to a bizarre ancient cult that worshipped a snake god, here are 10 recent archaeological discoveries from Egypt. Untouched Mummies. It seems like there is a never-ending supply of mummies in Egypt. Everywhere you turn, there's a mummy under the ground just waiting to be uncovered. One of the more recent discoveries actually revealed 14 new mummies that had gone untouched for over 2,500 years in a tomb in Saqqara. What makes this such an alarming recent discovery is that it happened in the middle of the pandemic. After such an already turbulent year, people all over the world sounded off their opinions about leaving these coffins closed. While science is pretty skeptical about curses and magic, that did not stop lots of people from speaking out against the ancient coffins, saying it would be a bad idea to open them because 2020 had been a horrible year already. What if one of the coffins contained a plague? What if one of the coffins contained a curse that could potentially end the world? Of course, neither of those things were likely to happen, and Egyptologists were excited that such an amazing discovery happened during such hard times. The coffins really were quite impressive, the paint was still perfect, the faces were recognizable, and all 14 were some of the most exquisitely preserved sarcophagi ever brought out of the ground. What's even more incredible about these coffins is that they were discovered only 10 miles south of the Giza pyramids. How in the world did everyone miss these buried treasures for so long? Mysterious Black Tomb. One of the most recent Egyptian discoveries is the mysterious Black Tomb, which was uncovered in Alexandria. Alexandria was one of the most prominent cities of the ancient world, named after the infamous conqueror Alexander the Great of Macedonia. Near the city is also the old site of one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, the Lighthouse of Alexandria, which has since been built over with a fort. What makes the Black Tomb especially intriguing is that it was initially thought that it could contain the remains of Alexander the Great himself, or even a deadly curse. Unfortunately, experts unsealed it very recently, and no curses were discovered. Instead, inside the black granite sarcophagus, researchers found 3 skeletons and something that looked a lot like red sewage water. They also discovered a very horrible stench the moment they opened the lid. According to an article from the BBC, the stench was so horrible that the researchers had to vacate the area and go back later with the help from Egyptian military engineers. The 3 skeletons inside of the sarcophagus were likely part of a family burial, but the remains were not very well mummified. In fact, the inside of the sarcophagus looked more like a witch's disgusting soup than any normal coffin. Who exactly the skeletons were is still a mystery, and as of July 2018, the site has been cleared for fear that the sarcophagus was releasing lethal toxic fumes. Would you have recommended opening these tombs? I would have advised against it, or at least using X-ray technology to see what was inside before opening it. Let me know what you would have done in the comments below, then be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Just this week, there have been loads of amazing discoveries around the world, and you won't want to miss any of the reports. Giant Pharaoh statue. Archaeologists never stop digging. An archaeological team just recently pieced together more than 6,000 individual fragments of a statue of King Psamtik I from the ancient city of Heliopolis, located in modern Cairo. It wasn't even found at a popular archaeological site. The statue was first uncovered in a working-class suburb in the city. Researchers first believed it was a depiction of Ramses II, one of the most famous rulers in Egyptian history. In fact, it was a minor disappointment when they found out who it really belonged to. Psamtik I was a less well-known pharaoh who ruled 6 centuries after Ramses II, from 664 BC to 610 BC. After piecing together all the fragments, researchers used 3D reconstruction to determine the original size and appearance of the statue. And this is incredibly exciting as the statue was about 26 feet, 8 meters tall. That's enormous for an ancient statue. One of the reasons that this is such a surprising discovery is that ever since Ramses II, the statues made in ancient Egypt got smaller and smaller. It's incredibly rare to see such a big masterpiece from so late in Egyptian history. However, it should be no surprise to Egyptologists who know the story of this unique king. According to CNN, Psamtik I actually founded the Renaissance movement in Egypt and started a cultural revolution that included religion, art, and architecture. This is probably why his statue was so much bigger than those that came over the previous 600 years. Ushabti figurines. There have been a lot of amazing discoveries coming out of Saqqara, Egypt in recent years. There have been dozens of new mummies found, lots of new burial tombs, and so many shafts it would make anyone's jaw drop. But one of the cooler finds comes from 5 new limestone sarcophagi and 4 wooden coffins that were recently discovered in 2020. They were found inside of a burial shaft that stretched an amazing 27 feet below the ground. The shaft was discovered inside of a region of the city known as Sacred Animal Necropolis, and among the treasures found were hundreds of fantastic artifacts and figurines. There were approximately 365 Ushabti figurines discovered in this burial shaft. Some of the figures are inscribed with hieroglyphics that are still visible even after all these years. If you're not sure what exactly a Ushabti figurine is, it's a small statue that would be buried in an Egyptian grave to help the body in the afterlife. They were essentially little totems, but they weren't the only artifacts found. Inside the burial shaft, there was also a small wooden obelisk painted with the figure Isis, who was the Egyptian god associated with rebirth. There were also depictions of Nephthys, the god of death. Excavations in this area have been going on since 2018 and are still active. It's one of the oldest sites in all of Egypt and is home to the Step Pyramid, which is believed to be the oldest pyramid in the entire world. It's located only 20 miles, 32 kilometers south of Cairo. Ancient coffins at Luxor. These excavations all took place in Egypt, so no one should be surprised to see even more mummies. 30 ancient coffins were discovered in 2019 at a site in Luxor, which at one point had been the ancient city of Thebes. According to CNN, Egyptian authorities revealed the striking contents of 30 ancient wooden coffins, most of which included mummies. While it was not broadcast a lot on the news, this was actually the biggest discovery in Egypt in over 100 years. It was also the first stash of coffins ever discovered by Egyptian researchers. This is because almost all the incredible finds in Egypt over the past few hundred years have been uncovered by foreign archaeological dig teams. The last giant discovery was in 1891, and it was orchestrated by foreigners. As you can imagine, the Egyptians are very proud of this newest discovery. They unveiled the 30 mummies in front of the impressive Hatshepsut temple in the Valley of the Kings. According to the reports, the coffins are believed to be around 3,000 years old. 26th Dynasty discovery. In May of 2020, an astonishing discovery was made by the Egyptian-Spanish Archaeological Mission. What they discovered was a unique cemetery that dates all the way back to the 26th Dynasty, formerly known as El Sawi era of Egypt. They made the discovery in the Minya Governorate, a region of Egypt rich in archaeological history. The Secretary General of the Supreme Council of Antiquities has claimed the cemetery is very unique, as it is in a style not previously discovered. Some other ancient discoveries in the area include papyri that date back to Roman Egypt. In fact, it's been estimated that around 70% of all literary paper discovered in Egypt has come from this region, but not all the secrets have been revealed yet. This cemetery would have been active between 664 BC and 332 BC, and it's not the only one. Other excavations in the area have discovered Roman-era tombs with domed ceilings, Roman tombstones, and bronze coins. While this cemetery does not appear to contain anyone overly important, it does come from an important time in Egyptian history following a period of foreign rule by the ruthless Nubian 25th dynasty. It was during the 26th dynasty that Egypt was united, freed from Assyrian control, and brought back to prosperity. In case you didn't know, ancient Egypt had an extremely volatile history of being conquered, liberated, and then conquered again. Ramses II era discovery. In the Old Kingdom of Egypt, Memphis was the capital city. Today it's located just a few miles away from Giza. According to an announcement from the Supreme Council of Antiquities, a number of unique carved stone blocks have been discovered in the area that date back to the rule of Ramses II. The statues are made of pink and black granite, as well as some that are made of limestone. The excavation team also found limestone blocks that dated back to the Coptic era, which has led researchers to believe the blocks the Egyptians used to build a lot of their statues actually ended up being recycled in later eras. Another part of this discovery was a giant statue of Pharaoh Ramses II and some smaller statues that represented various deities. Included among the deities was the warrior goddess Sekhmet, who is often viewed as the protector of the pharaohs and was the deity who would lead them into warfare. Another deity that was discovered at this site was the sky goddess Hathor, who was the symbolic mother to the pharaohs. And finally, a statue of Ptah was also discovered nearby. Ptah was seen as the god of creation and existed before any other thing in the universe. The excavation is still going on at the site as of July 2020, and it's expected that even more amazing relics will be discovered. If you want a bit of background on Ramses II, he was by far the most powerful pharaoh of the 19th dynasty and the New Kingdom. He was also one of the longest living monarchs in Egyptian history. During his long reign, Ramses II focused on leaving a massive legacy behind, which consisted of many cities, temples, and monuments. It's believed that he ruled Egypt between 1279 BC and 1213 BC. The world's oldest papyrus. This is one of the most amazing discoveries ever made in Egypt. It all began with some handwritten notes from an English traveler in the 19th century and some documents from 2 French pilots in the 1950s. Using these notes, Pierre Tallet made an unbelievable discovery. According to Smithsonian Magazine, he found a set of 30 caves inside some limestone hills in a very remote part of the Egyptian desert. These hills were miles inland, very far from the Red Sea and very far from any ancient or modern city. The caves had been sealed and hidden completely from view. If not for the documentation of the pilots and the old English traveler, nobody would have ever found these caves. The first digging session was in 2011, in which it became apparent that the caves had been used as a boat storage during the 4th dynasty of the Old Kingdom. That's around 4,600 years ago. Then during the 3rd digging session just recently, an entire collection of papyrus was found almost completely intact, written in hieroglyphics and written in hieratic, which was the cursive script that the ancient Egyptians used. After decoding the writing, it became clear that this discovery was incredible. It was a handwritten journal of a man who had been around during the construction of the Great Pyramid, which of course is a tomb for the mighty pharaoh Khufu. The journal tells of the man's journey across Egypt while he made all kinds of deliveries, and it outlines everything researchers have ever wanted to know about ancient Egypt in that time, including where the stone came from for the pyramids and even the political situation at the time. The wealth of knowledge inside the journal is fantastic. Snake cult. Rare footage has just been released of an ancient Egyptian funeral home thanks to National Geographic. In the video, you can very clearly see the burial complex, which is located beneath the desert sands about 20 miles, 32 kilometers away from Cairo. Estimates place the funeral home and burial complex at being operational in 600 BC. The site has allowed researchers to discover more about the business side of embalming and mummification, and it turns out mummification was actually a very serious and lucrative business. The sarcophagi found inside the underground burial complex linked to the funeral home revealed sarcophagi completely sealed for 2,600 years. In this complex, archaeologists also discovered the first gilded silver mummy mask since 1939. But the weirdest part is the snake cult. Inside the complex, researchers discovered evidence of a previously unknown cult dedicated to a snake goddess. They were known as priests of Neosheus, and up until now nobody had known that they existed. Even with the discovery, very little is known about the cultists. It makes you wonder just what kind of craziness was going on behind the scenes in ancient Egypt that even our best researchers still don't know about. Hunt for Cleopatra. A recently made discovery in Egypt is offering clues as to the current whereabouts of Cleopatra's tomb. Cleopatra is undoubtedly the most famous ancient queen to have ever lived. She has been immortalized throughout the ages as a beautiful and intelligent leader and is still well known today in popular culture. But despite all of Cleopatra's fame, nobody to this day knows where her tomb is hidden. Some people believe it was buried in Alexandria, where she ruled from her royal palace, which tumbled into the ocean after the Great Tsunami of 365 AD. Others think her final resting place could be in the ancient temple of Taposiris Magna, just a few miles away from Alexandria. A recent discovery of 2 high-status mummies who lived during the time of Cleopatra might actually shed some light on where exactly her resting place sits. According to The Guardian, this discovery is being described as sensational because the necropolis where the 2 mummies were found is being linked to Cleopatra. Evidence suggests the 2 mummies were initially buried completely covered with expensive gold leaf. This was a luxury only given to the very top tier of society. This means the 2 individuals probably knew Cleopatra herself and could have played some pivotal role in her kingdom. Because this discovery happened at one of the probable sites for Cleopatra's tomb in Taposiris Magna, researchers are starting to suspect that somewhere in that general area, Cleopatra is still mummified inside her tomb. We could be months away from finally uncovering the legendary tomb of the Queen of Egypt. Do you think we will ever find her tomb? What is your favorite discovery from ancient Egypt? Tell me your thoughts in the comment section below. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks as always for watching, and see you again soon for another awesome video.